right. I think this is going to be a very interesting discussion, one of the most pivotal conversations that we are going to have around agentic AI and how it's transforming business. I think, let me start off with a very short story. Sometime early last year, consumer brand company launched an assistant that was not just to read emails, summarize documents, but to launch a marketing campaign autonomously, measure, monitor results, and optimize the budget on the fly. The result was a 28% increase in campaign ROI and a marketing team that was more working towards strategizing rather than looking at dashboards. So I think that's what agentic AI is doing today. It's not just taking orders. It is essentially taking decisions, taking actions, orchestrating stuff, and getting to a goal, and organizing itself to achieve that goal in the most optimal fashion. In a very short span of time, we've come from narrow AI to generative AI to agentic AI. And I think that journey is going to continue. We talked a lot about that in the morning, but I think we are going to unpack some of that in this session. And what I would like is for all of you to, talk a little bit about yourself in terms of your role and how you've been able to implement agentic AI, some of the challenges as well that you faced, and then we'll carry on this discussion to answer some very pertinent questions around what happens when AI goes wrong, when agentic AI takes decision that it's not aligned to, say, a brand value, or it's hiring a resource that's not necessarily the right resource. So there are risks associated as well. We'll unpack some of that risks. We'll also talk a little bit about guardrails that organizations are putting together. And with that, I would want to hand it over to our esteemed panelists with Anju, if you want to start, and then we can go around the table and unpack some of these important concepts.
Yeah, no, very excited to be here. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I have been implementing AI since I've been in my professional career. A lot of traditional and classical AI first, and then generative AI, when I personally had to learn quite a bit. And that space is changing massively. You have heard it all this morning. You had heard it yesterday as well. Everybody talks about people and process. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And when I think about agentic AI, this wasn't something that we started out when the generative AI took the mainstream. So there wasn't much of agentic AI at that time. It was all implementing a simple ChatGPT across all your enterprises. But then soon enough, 2 years later, we are all here talking about agentic AI, which is happening. It's very possible. But it's going to take a lot from an enterprise, from an organizational perspective, to be able to deploy and extract value from the agentic AI. So when I think about AI agent, it's a system, a machine that can actually think, it can react, and it can resonate on the pieces of information that you provide. So there's a lot that we will uncover today in this group. I've had opportunity to talk to each one of them, and looking very much forward to sharing some of my views as well.
Great. Dan, do you want to go next?
Sure. So Dan Vasquez from Rocket Mortgage. I lead our AI strategy within our technology platform team. Also very happy to be here. It's my first time at an Avasant event. It's been very fun meeting all of you and interacting with you. Our AI journey started quite a long time ago, like probably many data-driven organizations, with machine learning, and has grown from there. And I think as we look at how can we use agentic AI now to supercharge our business, honestly, a lot of the use cases and a lot of the opportunities that we're seeing are things that we've been talking about wanting to solve for, and this kind of holy land that we've wanted to get to for quite a while. We just didn't have the right tools, right? There was always a dream within our data teams, within our technology teams, of automating more, of getting to the point of, like in our industry, that one-click, instant mortgage. How can we make it as easy as applying for a credit card online, or at least as instantaneous, right? But the barriers to get there we just didn't have the right tools. And now, first with generative AI, and now as we start to chain these generative AI systems together and call them agents and allow them to perform, some work, we'll talk more about making decisions later. I think, that's debatable, but certainly perform more useful work. It's really unlocking that value that we've wanted to get to for a long time and making a big difference for us.
Great. Adnan, do you want to talk?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Adnan. I run the AI machine learning group at UST. And my job entails in between academia and industry. So as in academia, we like to say we have been doing generative AI longer than it was cool here. Right? Now it's cool and people are working with it with the ChatGPT moment. So some of our customers are here on the stage as well. We work with a lot of people for digital transformation, for artificial intelligence, implementing real-world solutions in agentic AI. And the way I would say that what agentic AI is essentially the capability and ability to be able to plan, perceive, to be able to perceive their insights and interaction from the systems, be able to plan it, be able to learn from the outcomes, be able to act on top of it, and also be able to have the RLHF or reinforcement learning with human feedback to be able to go back and then fix those things. So these components are what make agentic AI agentic AI. Nowadays, this definition goes around like everything, even if it's a glorious scheduled job, is an agent. That's not true. There are certain elements of autonomy which has to be there in order for something to be an agent. So we'll talk more about it then.
Yeah, absolutely. Nitesh?
Hi, so nice to meet everyone. I'm Nitesh Dhingra. I lead the data science team at Capital Group. So we are an active asset manager based out of Los Angeles, downtown. So yeah, I think I would say maybe more from a context of asset management, we are already seeing value of AI, agentic AI particularly. Like we've been using AI for a long time, but like particularly agentic AI, we're already seeing value across multiple areas, like from investment professionals or portfolio managers to sales, service, operations, etc. So for example, so we are a 95-year-old company, and there's tons of data that's available. So if a portfolio manager has to make decision, they use tons of structured and unstructured data, but they also don't use a lot of data that's available from this 95 years of history, right? So with agentic AI, they can have all of this at their fingertips, and we can really help them with decision making. And similarly for, I would say maybe optimizing client portfolios with human in the loop is very, very important to learn from humans. So that's where a human agentic interaction, I think, is where we're seeing a lot of value. And there are multiple areas in terms of like marketing and sales where a lot of value has been unlocked already, where a Salesforce member can generate leads, going on to preparing them for a meeting with a very succinct agenda using Gen AI, and then following up on the action item. So there are a lot of use cases that we are already benefiting from.
Great. So Dan, you brought up a good point that you didn't have the right tools until now to be able to deploy agentic AI. Having said that, what other things are prerequisite? Because tools is one side of the things, but organizations still potentially don't have a good control over the data. There are a lot of other prerequisites that's potentially needed to get organizations ready to really start deploying agentic AI at scale. What do you think are some of the challenges or prerequisites required to really build this up at scale?
So I'll take this. We work with a lot of organizations who prematurely tries to sprinkle AI, I guess. So it's like security. It's not something which you can, and there are deterministic use cases which can be solved easily without having the AI part in there. But there are three key things which are prerequisites, to your point, for having agents in AI. One of them is, of course, a data pipeline. Having clean data, having data available for these agents to be able to consume, be able to act upon it, that's really critical. And the second part where most organizations stumble is the observability of the agentic thresholds. So how can you put guardrails around those agents so they don't just go out willy-nilly and start doing shenanigans, right? So that's the second key aspect of it. And third is what I call prompt ops, or having that agentic capability to have their prompt ops, and I'm going to coin the term chief agentic officer, I guess. So having the prompt ops available to be able to marry the business needs along with the technology, so the agents can actually perform that loop which you were referring to, the human in the loop observability pattern.
I think when that question gets asked, and it gets brought up a lot, right? I mean, AI is garbage in, garbage out when it comes to data. So everybody knows, hey, if we're going to embark on this AI journey, we have to have our data, correct. A lot of folks immediately think about, business data or operational data, and I think what actually makes a very big impact in a lot of cases right now, as folks are trying to get into agentic AI, trying to figure out, okay, what kind of agents, what kind of assistants would help my business, they're missing some of that people and almost like HR-like data, right? So the way that we try from a strategy perspective to look at where can AI help us is we look at, well, what are the jobs that we're doing currently? What are the jobs humans are doing right now? What are the roles that they're performing? What are the tasks? Then you say, okay, well, I want to create an agent or an assistant that duplicates that or that at least augments that. So what are the criteria for hiring that person? What are the criteria for teaching that person how to do their job? What are the criteria for holding them accountable in that job? Because that's what you need then to create that assistant, right? And that's the kind of stuff that leaders will look at you and go, oh, shit, well, we just kind of wing that. Or there used to be a document somewhere, but there's nothing that a data scientist or an engineer can really grab usually and say, okay, this is exactly how this person works, from onboarding to finish. And that's usually where we have to partner with folks and build that up.
Well, I think that's go ahead, sorry.
If I can add something on top of that, the prerequisites, because when we were starting out our journey with the traditional AI, then you need good data quality, structured AI, and we can underwrite most of our applications. Then came generative AI, RAG system summarization. You don't need that clean data, and I would say that, yes, you don't. You can fit that in, and you can extract and let the SMEs clean your data. But then when you get to the agentic AI system, it's a singular modality that's going to come in both structured and unstructured assets together to be able to extract value from the AI agents. And for that, you really need to figure out what is the use case we're going to go after, or your organization is going to go after, and put the data assets, both structured and unstructured, together, and then play the role of that chief agentic officer to drive your use cases. So once you start to drive your use cases, you can show it at a small scale and show that it's adding value. But then, to your point, Dan, and you and I have talked about it a little bit on the backside, is, when you start to scale, your enterprise architecture is not ready for it, because the architecture needed to run agentic AI looks very different, and it's evolving on a daily basis. So how do you go after this? You'll start to hear the terms MCP, which is the Model Context Protocol. You'll start to hear the A2A, the ANPs, the ACPs. These terminologies are starting to evolve now, and the whole architecture of any organization is just not ready to drive that deployment at scale. So a lot of advancement is still happening, and it will happen. Security is a nightmare right now, but still the CISOs are starting to get their arms around it and help us out in driving those. So I just wanted to add that.
Nope, that's good. And Nitesh, just to add on to it, we talked about data challenges. What about cultural and people challenges? Because that's another important aspect of building AI at scale or agentic AI at scale. So how do organizations get ready for deploying some of this, both from a cultural leadership perspective as well?
There are no challenges, just kidding. So, of course, so I think we, over the last couple of years, more so after ChatGPT came out, everybody's interested in the organization. They want to leverage generative AI, right? So what's happening there is, as actually building on to what you just mentioned, we are all aware of sandboxes, right? Data lives in people's sandboxes, their laptops. Algorithms live in a lot of sandboxes. So what might happen, which I'm scared of, is agents living in sandboxes, and hundreds and thousands of agents living in sandboxes. So that's why I think there is and that has started, we have already started seeing that in terms of the cultural kind of evolution of agentic AI. So what's required is, on the infrastructure side, is an agentic AI layer, which can be a repository of both the native built agents within the company, or the agents that company is buying from other platforms like, say, Adobe, Salesforce, etc. All of the agents sitting in one layer, one ecosystem, which has governance on top. That way, we don't see the proliferation of agents across the board. Now, there's another aspect to it, is change management. Particularly, I would say we have seen some use cases in servicing side. All right, if the AI is going to do all my work, what am I going to do? Right. the message that we are delivering is, yeah, AI is going to take all your tedious work out of there, but you can think of more, you can focus more on decision making, and the AI is kind of an augmenting your kind of day to day.
No, that's interesting. I think we'll shift gears a little bit towards the business side of things because we want to understand what's the business value. We did speak about it from a technical standpoint a little bit. We've seen operations that self-correct. We've seen supply chains that auto-route with, for instance, Orion at UPS was able to save, by recent reports, about 100 million miles of driving, which is about $300 to $400 million in saving. And Klarna, for instance, was able to use Agentic AI to not just answer queries from customers, but to resolve queries, which is again about a 30 million savings annually. So how are you seeing that? What's the ROI in your own businesses? How do you measure that? And can you give some use cases in your own businesses that you've seen deploy and be successful in that deployment?
Yeah, I can start with that. So one of the things that we're really focused on right now, we have an internal goal to save over 1 million team member hours this year with AI tooling. And you ask yourself, okay, so what are we doing with that extra million hours, right? We're not approving 1 million extra hours of PTO. It's, all right, this is now time that you can spend, coaching your team, improving your processes, talking with clients, working to solve their problems, doing what humans are good at. And one of the areas we're really focused on right now with AI is empowering our sales leaders. So not just, we call them, bankers, the folks that you're talking to when you're trying to get a mortgage with Rocket Mortgage, or our client relations folks that are, doing what client relations does, everywhere, taking those phone calls from folks. They're leaders. Like, we ask them to coach their teams, to improve their teams, to prepare their teams for whatever's going on in that day, coming up with new sales plays, providing reactive coaching based on how calls or performance was, yesterday. And our leaders spend a lot of time right now, or at least they did, gathering data, gathering market information, gathering performance information, going to this BI dashboard and this BI dashboard and this newsletter and this message in Slack. And, they spend hours every morning just getting ready for their morning huddle with their team. And then when it comes to performance management, well, okay, now I got to listen to however many phone calls I can manage in between everything else and take some notes and then find some time to talk to the team member and coach them. It's a long feedback loop. Mm-hmm. And so how can we use AI to improve that process? How can we have them automatically set up to lead their team, for the day with the latest market information, with the latest sales information, with, personalized coaching for their team, performance data? How can we give them scorecards for every single phone call that person is having with, a client, with immediate, coaching insights? That's the kind of stuff that they can then use to make their team better. And how we measure it is how we measured it before. We measure these teams based on their conversion rate, right? How many mortgage clients are they converting into, or how many mortgage leads are they converting into real clients? And a poor performing team, usually in our org, is converting at about 3%, maybe even a little less. A high performing team is going to be like 8%, right? So if we can make even just like a 2% difference in this, you're talking about hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for us. So it's a huge impact.
Great. Anju, what about you? I think you've deployed, again, a lot of these in scale. How do you measure the return on investment? What's the biggest success that you've had from a business transformation perspective?
Yeah, you can measure return on investment. It's, again, I always talk about extracting value from AI. So once you deploy, we have deployed multiple generative AI use cases across the company, across all the FRs, extract value, they're saving time, and they are articulating that as well. You go to your CFO, you give that, this is how we are saving time. The CFO goes back to the business leader, okay, you saved this much with AI, give me the money back. Businesses never want to give that money back. So that's an equation that you constantly iterate through, because where are the savings coming from? Savings are happening, and what we are seeing more and more is we are not backfilling the attrition. So we are saving. There are, agentic AI use cases within compliance that we deployed full end-to-end, within claims deployed full end-to-end. But again, when I say full end-to-end, still within the domain, I would be happy when we literally drove it through an enterprise architecture level, where we have changed the architecture to be able to deploy at scale multiple agents that can go from claims to underwriting to many other use cases. We are not there yet. And for that to happen, it goes back to, have you trained your organization? And when I say train your organization, I mean getting your board ready, getting your exec team ready, getting your people ready, and also getting the talent within wherever you and your company works for, getting the talent within that space ready as well. So I work with the chancellors of the two universities, University of Wisconsin Marquette and Marquette University, on how are we getting the universities ready towards building the talent as well. Then comes down to the last mile delivery. We always talk about when we are deploying software, there's last mile delivery. And I always say that with AI, with the world that we are living in, and hopefully you guys will agree, there's no last mile delivery. Literally, once you put the things into production, users start to adopt it, more work starts on your team to make sure that they are actually adopting it, and you are driving the adoption to them, and you're constantly measuring the value, because it's not that straightforward. Extracting value, it's not that straightforward. It's highly dependent on the adoption that's happening of your tool, and the adoption is also quite disparate. The newer users who are coming in, or the new hires that are coming in for the tool adoption, they're heavily adopting, whereas more of experienced underwriters or experienced financial reps, they're not the ones who are going to go in and drive through the agentic deployments. So again, we put all the eyes and ears right now in being able to understand where are we getting the value, what is the last mile delivery, and I also say my team, there's no last mile delivery on this. It's a constant iterative loop, but you also have to get everybody within that chain ready to be able to deploy this.
That's a great point, and Adnan, I would want to come back to you on this. Is from a service provider standpoint or a partner standpoint, organizations are trying to do this on their own as well. Everybody's on their path to AI. How do companies like you support organizations in that journey? Are you able to accelerate that? And what's the difference? What's the value add that you are able to bring to your clients in their AI journey?
No, thank you. So partnerships matter. Good partners bring in the wealth of experience and the knowledge which we are learning from working with multiple different clients and different use cases. So what we are seeing is English is quickly becoming the programming language of the world. Right? We are seeing whether it's an analytics stack or whether it's software development stack, English is becoming we are talking in the terms of prompts now. And whether it's selecting the library through AI or AutoGen or semantic kernel or even the hyperscalers, what partners bring into the table is like which fits really your what you should do, what kind of guardrails you should put in place. So that discipline of implementation, which takes you to a higher level of abstraction from a business perspective and explain to them what is the best suited technology for you, I think that is really important and impactful, which partners bring in like UST. Another thing I would like to add in here is that the agentic flow and how we are seeing these things evolve is going to become very democratized. So you're seeing the democratization of AI how it's unfolding, and the wipe coding, I must say wipe coding in every talk, it's going to really make the SDLC much more effective. So any partner who is doing software development for businesses must know that there's 60% of the code on GitHub right now is AI generated. And OpenAI has claimed that 25% of the code they are rolling out in production is AI generated, which means anybody who's doing traditional software development and generating this, it's losing out on that margin. And that's where the real value creation and capturing is happening. So the SDLC pipeline is also a really important one from a partnership perspective.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think I want to switch gears a little bit here towards governance. And Nitesh and both of you from financial services industry, very regulated, highly regulated. What are the risks, and how do you put the guardrails around AI, agentic AI? How do you ensure that they are complying to regulations, your requirements, and what are some of the best practices or things that you can or cannot do with AI today?
Yeah, so maybe, like you rightly mentioned, every process is regulated in asset management industry, and I'm sure with Dan as well. I used to work in mortgages and credit cards. So I would say There are a lot of guardrails. Maybe the top two in my mind would be, number one, having a robust data infrastructure where you have a centralized source of ground truth. So that way, whatever the agents are producing, you can ground it back to that centralized truth, source of truth. And that can limit hallucinations, we're all aware of that, and have outputs that are generated that are more in line with actual data. And also, benefit of this centralized data infrastructure is through the human-agent interaction, a lot of data is going to be generated, a lot of feedback data, right? So that data should come back to this centralized repository data infrastructure, and that will help improve the quality of AI outputs over time. So that's one, like in terms of data. Second is not taking whatever agents generate at the face value. So meaning like having a reasoning process, like how humans reason, how humans reason, you read something and you reason and you bring more information and then make conclusions out of that. So doing that using agents. So agents doing the reasoning and making the outputs more transparent and more kind of fair. So I think that's another way of kind of thinking about putting guardrails, which we feel more comfortable about.
So Dan, on the same topic, we talked about making transparent. Can you really audit agents and see what's behind their reasoning? Because they evolve, right? One of the fundamental principles of agentic AI is they're evolving, learning, optimizing. So how would you be able to audit some of that in a financial services regulatory environment that it's taking the right decisions, using the right regulations, keeping the right regulations in mind?
Yeah, I mean, if you need absolutely perfect, transparent auditability at every step along the way, then Gen AI might not be the tool for that job. But you can certainly audit, in an agentic system or in a larger orchestrated system. You can document, all of the data going into that system. You can document, all of the prompts, who has changed them, when, exactly what models you're using, and when. If you're using an open weight model, you can document the changes that you've made there. A lot of the governance, a lot of the ability to mitigate that risk, I think, actually comes, at the opposite end. I think it's a lot of monitoring the outputs and making sure that you're being very, very, reactive to any drift or any changes in the outputs that you expect. It's an artificial intelligence. It's no different than if you hire a human being and you say, hey, you're going to be my PR manager and you're going to go out on CNBC and talk about my firm all the time. Well, you're going to really hope that you vetted that person out and that they come with the right resume, that you can trust that person to do that, but you have no idea what's going on in their brain or is going to come out of their mouth at any given time. They might say something you don't like once in a while, and then you've got to just be able to, react to that, give them coaching, give them feedback, pull them off the air if you need to, right? You need to be ready for that at all times. So you can't take your eye off the ball once you've deployed something like this to production in a case where you're worried about that kind of risk.
That's a great point. It's like a human. The big fundamental difference being, again, you can assign accountability to that human. Now, what happens with AI agents? Whose accountability is it if they're going wrong? Who ultimately takes the fall for instance, if they take a wrong decision on a mortgage application, for instance?
So you brought that up at the beginning about, these systems making decisions. And I would argue that maybe for very, very small decisions, like what step is next in the process, sure, you might be able to offload that to the system. But if we're talking about, especially a mortgage or something, like if we're talking about who is eligible to get a mortgage, or that is not something that we would offload to AI right now. And the way that we think about it, the way that we think about AI, period, it's a tool, right? It's like using a calculator on a math test. Great. If it makes your life easier, if it lets you get the right answer faster, fantastic. But it's still your name on that paper. And if you use the tool wrong and get the answer wrong, you're still going to get an F.
So one thing I would add there is we've built an AI risk oversight committee. And that's the committee that I chair with one of my partners in risk. And any model that we put into production, either generative AI or AI model, has to go through the risk committee. We look at proxy discrimination, disparate impact as well with a third-party law firm to ensure that you've got the paper trail. Yeah. And then anything that goes into production, nobody can use it unless they go through an AI ethics training. It is mandatory for all of our employees. If they are wanting to use the tool, they have to be the CEO as well. They have to take the training. So there's steps that you have to put in place and structure that you have to put in place to ensure that you are being ethical. There's a gold standard set of questions for the first agent that you're deploying in every step in the agent, so that if the LLM, which we don't control, LLMs are controlled by your big fours. So if the LLM is degrading, you are catching it with your set of questions as through the process moves.
I know, I think I'll pose one last question to all of you. Where do you see things in 3 to 5 years from a business standpoint, and how things are going to be run? What kind of leaders you'll have? What kind of organization that you'll have from a cultural standpoint as well? So just give a picture of where your industry is going to look like, or your own organization is going to look like in 3 to 5 years from now.
So I can go first. So I see them as digital colleagues. So they're going to become digital colleagues, and they will be actually orchestrating multiple colleagues together. So it's like a team, a crew, which is managing it, and that's just going to become a norm. Just like right now, generative AI has become a norm, that would also become a norm. The second thing is that there will be a leadership shift. So chief agent officer is still up for debate whether that agent officer is going to be a human or an agent. So we'll see how that works out. And I think the third aspect of that is going to be a culture of experimentation is going to grow. We will see more fail fast, and we'll see the development life cycle is going to shrunk with Scrum sprints being 2 weeks to 3 sprints in a day. That level of sophistication will come in there, and the guardrails will be put in place. So it's just going to become so augmented and so integrated as part of organizations that the legacy thinking of, human as a speciesism is the best thinker, that's going to go away.
And maybe I can maybe add. So, I truly feel that organizations that have AI first mindset and approach are going to have a significant competitive edge over others. But that means it involves AI being adopted across all the levels in the company, from associates to mid-level management to senior leaders. So, for example, 20 years ago, we all started using apps, and now we all use apps. And similarly, now we all use Copilot, etc., right? So I do see that in a couple of years, agents will become an essential part of our professional lives. I would say, because of agents, like we were just discussing, so agents will become our colleagues, and it could help, say, for an associate gain efficiency, but for senior leaders, they would have this rapid intelligence so they can make decisions very quickly, again, leading back to the competitive edge over time.
Yeah, one thing I would add is only time will tell how it's going to shape up, because we humans are sitting in the way of the deployment. And what I'm looking for every large organization to have a CIO 2.0, there's not enough of them. There's not enough of them who are ready to disrupt their own organization with what's about to come. Because as AI leader, we can implement things, but we can't scale the way we need to scale unless I have a CIO 2.0 ready to move along with me.
There's a lot of fear out there of AI replacing humans. I don't look at it that way at all. I think that we're going to have significantly better humans, and I think that that's really exciting. I talked earlier about where we're really investing in AI tooling to make our leaders better leaders. If you've ever heard of Jocko Willink, I think there's a lot of executive type folks in here, probably most everybody has. One of his mantras is, there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. What if your organization didn't have any bad leaders? What if every single team member that you had in your organization had the best executive leadership coach, had the best performance management, had the best, personal assistant? That would be amazing. You talk about 10x, that's 1,000x.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're headed.
No, this is great. Thank you, everybody, for these insights. I think it's the jury is out there, but I think the journey has begun. A lot of you have made significant progress, and we look forward to hearing more again in a couple of years. Let's see where we are all. Maybe we'll be having a very different conversation. But thank you so much all for sharing your insights and your practical experience, and we would wish you all the best for the future implementations as well.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all to our morning speakers.